Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for the Marvel United X-Men set. This is the base game. So if you see my other videos, they just had the first Marvel United that went over, like the Avengers, Spider-Man, Defenders, basically the non-X-Men side of the Marvel Universe, or Fantastic Four. This one's gonna jump in. It's the start of the X-Men. Most of the designs for the characters are based on their 90s outfits, or the 90s era. And then eventually, the base game should be released in store soon, and then they'll have the Kickstarter content, all the expansion will be coming early next year. So you get all the different, like, 10, 5, 6, 7 different expansions, which will have a lot more content. So we're going to hop into this. This game is 100% compatible with the regular Marvel United. So if you have that, or you bought the base game, you can buy this. You can mix and match it. So you can have Captain America and Cyclops fighting with each other. Or, Wolverine and the Hulk. This does add the Marvel expansion, which a lot of people on the Kickstarter called like Season 2 or Series 2. Does make a bunch of improvements without changing the actual base of the game. Like, the general gameplay is the exact same, but it adds a bunch of cool new features to the game, which arguably I wish they would. Some of it I wish they could go back and retroactively change on the other stuff, like maybe like an upgrade or expansion to some of the other stuff. But this is just a sheet listing all the different stuff we're gonna get. So what you're doing is you're playing. It's a fairly simple to go through, but can be very hard game to play. One easy to learn, hard to master type of games. So you're playing as a team of superheroes. This one would be the X-Men. You're up against a villain. They're going to be like in the middle of the board here, and then there's various locations set around the board, or this is how they recommend setting it. And then there's civilians and thugs that you have to defeat. And there's basically your end goal is you need to beat the villain before they complete their scheme. And then you can do that by rescuing civilians, defeating thugs, defeating henchmen. And if you lose, you lose. Basically, that's how it goes. And then the villains are going to get special moves. This is just kind of a quick setup. So, there's special BAM effects that happen when the villain takes place. I'm not going to do like a full how-to right now. But basically how it goes is you draw a card, you play a card, resolve its actions. What makes the game unique is you get, so like this is the previous player, you get their actions plus the actions of the card you played. If there's a villain card in between, because every couple of turns, it starts off with every 3 turns. The regular players take 3 turns like in a row, so if you're playing 4 players, it's player 1, player 2, player 3, then the villain acts, then player 1 or player 4 goes, then 1, then 2, and the villain acts. You get just their symbols. If they have a special ability on there, you do not get their ability. So you kind of got to work with teammates as a cooperative game, because you might be like when you're getting ready to play a card, you're using what the previous player played, but you also might be wanting to set up what the next player has, because you might be like, oh, do you have any way of moving? And they're like, no, I can't move at all, but I'm going to need to be like, I can play a card to let you move. Or oh, I can do a bunch of damage to this guy if I have his damage. Let me give you some extra damage tokens. So it's kind of an interesting cooperative effect. There's movement, attack, and heroic. And then there's wild symbols which act as any of them. You can gain tokens that you can use later on or combine to use things. Like I said, the villain, hero, villain, hero. Different missions you can try and complete are rescuing civilians, and there's little sheets every time you rescue. When you put them on here, when this gets filled up, you complete it. You can defeat thugs, or you can clear threats, which are special, either henchmen or other threats that are unique to each villain has their own set. And then you have to beat at least 2 of those 3, either civilians, thugs, or threats, to even be able to attack the villain. So you have to do other stuff. So you can't just jump in and start weighing waste to Magneto. Wow, why was that such a tongue twister? Then I show here, so you have 3 different tiers. So you defeat the first one, then you do it, everything kind of shuffles over. But also to make the game a little bit interesting is because you have to manage. Some villains are going to put out more thugs or more civilians than others. Some won't, so you kind of got to decide, is there going to be enough civilians to save to make it worth that, or should I work on the other 2 things? There's always going to be threats available, so that's never an issue. Magneto has a special one you get to add in there. But the other thing also keep in mind to make the game a little bit more difficult is after you complete your first mission or whatever, and then the villain acts every 2 spots. So you kind of want to get close to completing 2, if not all 3 of these, about at the same time. Because then as soon as you complete one, hopefully you can complete the next one, like the next turn or even the same turn. So that way you can just go ahead and start attacking them. Otherwise, if you complete one right away, then the villains are going to attack every 2 turns instead of every 3 turns. So it's going to be a lot harder to keep up with them. And some of the new stuff they added was there's anti-heroes, so it's characters can be played as good guys or bad guys. They have delay icons. There's invulnerability and crisis, which are different types of tokens that will help you out. The other brand new thing in the game is supervillain mode. So this lets one player control a villain to play against the other players instead of playing an AI deck. Because normally you just flip the top card of the villain deck up, play it, it does what it does. This lets an actual person take control of the villain. They get to draw 2 cards, and then they get to decide, on their turn, they get to decide which ones they want to play as, or which one they want to play, so they can actually be a little bit more maneuverable, so they can be like, well, if I move 3 on this one, it does this, but if I can move 2 on this, it will do this. So it'll make it a little bit harder. Plus, there's an extra deck of super villain cards, which gives them extra bonuses to use. But to counteract that, each hero gets a hero card they can play, which will help out. And on the back of the villain cards, they'll have tokens they'll get. Now, if you're playing this with any of the stuff from the first Marvel United, eventually, when the rest of the content and all the expansions come out, they will be releasing. Actually, it says maybe they even have it right here. CMON.com, right there. You can find out what the supervillain tokens would be for all the previous characters from the first. It's like Red Skull and Ultron and Green Goblin. So it's actually kind of nice. So that way, if you're using them, you can still gain that extra little bonus. So here's some of the supervillain cards, superhero cards. And we'll go over all those. And then there's also a solo mode you can play. So if you don't have any friends with you at the moment, you just choose 3 heroes, you play them all at the same time. You get to draw different sets of hands. And here's our quick rule summary. So villains' turns, they'll move. Hero turn, they'll do their stuff, damage. Simple as that. I didn't go over too thorough. You could probably watch my first Marvel United to get more information, or I'll actually just go how to play it sometime. Here's all our tokens, as you can see I haven't punched anything out. So you have health tokens for the villains and henchmen. Crisis tokens, which will have different effects based on what villains you're playing against. The purple ones are threats, the red ones are henchmen. Here's an invulnerability token. On the back of all of the henchmen are your civilians. They just flip over. Which is really nice, because then you can just grab one of the tokens and just quickly throw it down versus having to try and dig for them. Then we have tokens for movement, attack, wild, heroic, some more invulnerability tokens, accelerated, and then a special Senator Kelly and Hunted token for some of our villains. On the back, same pictures on the same side, except these are accelerated versus decelerated, which is a new mechanic they added. I don't know if it's a new mechanic. I think there was other cards that did it. And here's inside the case. This is actually a nice case for storing just the base game. Once you start getting expansions, then it becomes harder to figure out what to do with all these. But it stores all the cards nice. The figures are in there nice. Alright. So one thing we have is we have our villain dashboard. So this is where the villain player card goes. So if I have Sabertooth, he would go up here, just kind of in there, just so you know where he's at. He keeps track of his things. So yeah, once you defeat one of these villain acts every 2 cards, once you defeat a second one, then you can actually start trying to defeat them. And if you decide you want to do the third one, which is optional, you don't have to do it. You gotta draw an extra card, which might just help you win the victory. But you also have to keep in mind, if you run out of cards, you lose the game. On the back side, just that. Nothing extra special about that. Same as the other one. We have all of our big giant location cards. It's on the back. Excuse me. On the back, they actually say X-Men. Just kind of neat. Throw these on my my easel here. So this is Muir Island, the Mutant Research Center. So on the bottom here, they have this little purple spot. That's for your threat icons. So you put them on each location, then as you clear them, you remove them. And then this spot here, it says end of turn, there will be a threat card on there, which we'll go over. It could be like the Seal of Cyrac for Juggernaut, or it could be the Blob if you're playing as Mystique. So it could be a different thing that you have to deal with, and once you beat that, you can remove the token. Now, there are cards that are going to move occasionally, so they might cover these back up, but you don't put a new threat token on there. Unless you move the threat with that, I suppose, from the other one. But if this is empty, then if your heroes are at the end of your turn, they gain a special ability, so it's another upside of cleaning up the threats. Even though there's 6 locations, only 4 threats, you might want to clean off the other ones, because they might help you out. And some are more beneficial than others, based on which games. And some are going to repeat from this set to the other set from the Marvel, just the regular one. So, and then up here it's going to show you what they start with. So this starts with 1 civilian, he has 2 extra spots, comparatively to Genosha, which has 2 civilians, 1 thug, and has 5 spots. So, like, if you're you could always play one that has more spots, because it'll be harder to fill it up, which is something you don't want to happen. So you can kind of like pick and choose your locations after you start buying expansions and stuff, or various versions, to decide what works better for you. Or to maybe stack the deck a little bit better in your way. So, this one says, end of turn, another hero in this or an adjacent location may draw a card. Again, having extra cards gives you more options, which is really nice. So then we have Genosha. It says, end of turn, you may rescue 1 civilian from this location. We have the X-Jet. End of turn, you may move to any other location. And since you only played a 6 of these, and I think we got 8, you have some different options to begin with. Asteroid M. You may deal 1 damage to a thug or henchman in any location. The Weapon X facility. You may discard 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck to gain 2 attack tokens. So the important part is the bottom of your deck, because again, if your deck ever runs out, you're KO'd and you lose the game. When you take damage, you have to discard cards from your hand. So if you normally start off with, I think, 3 cards, you draw 1, so you have 4 cards during your turn usually, or 3 cards in between turns, if you played one. But if you take damage from you have to discard a card from your hand. So then now you're down to 2 cards, and you can be down to 1 card. If you lose all the cards in your hand, you're KO'd. So then your character just gets tipped over. Beginning your next turn, you redraw back up to 4 cards. So now you're 4 more cards farther into your deck. So having extra cards is nice, but these ones where they let you, okay, you can discard a card, so this one's not helping me right now, like I don't need movement, or I don't need heroics. You can put it back in the bottom, so your hand's going to be smaller, but your overall deck, which is your life, won't be any weaker for it. So it's kind of an interesting way to do that. So Sentinel Space Station says you may discard 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. To swap 1 card from your hand with one of your face-up cards in your storyline. And that's the other unique thing about this, is when you're playing through your the storyline, as cards you play down, they stay in the order you play them. Because they, like I showed before, the hero that played the previous card, you get some of their abilities or tokens, those symbols. But also, there's times some of these characters, like, you swap cards in and out, which is really nice, because in that way you can be like, oh, I used up my double attack, or I used my wild. I'd rather switch out my one movement ability for my one that has 2 wild symbols, which makes a lot more sense. It's just a neat, interesting strategy. We have the Hangar Bay. At the end of the turn, you may gain a movement, heroic, or attack token. And finally, we have Xavier's Institute for Higher Learning. It says you may draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. Which, like, this is the kind of one where it's good and bad depending on how much damage you're taking. You're taking a lot of damage, this could really help you later on. Just so you have more options, or you can not have to discard as fast, or, like, you know, not get killed as quickly. But if you're playing normal and you haven't taken any damage, then this doesn't really generally help you. Alright, so there's our locations. Let's look at our heroes first. And then we'll take a look at our villain. Well, let's look at our heroes first. Ugh, if I can get them all. So I have all mine sleeved already. Which is nice. They do fit in the box sleeved. And there's still room for more cards. They fit in here sleeved, but they're just hard to get out. And I just knocked all my tiles onto the floor. Alright. So, we're going to start with Wolverine. He's the first one I drew. So, here's our little miniature for Wolverine. Ooh, I was hoping that would just work a little bit better. So I didn't have to hold him up there. But, there's Wolverine. His little claws. He's got some, like dust or explosions behind him. I'll just kind of set him off to the side. So, another unique thing that this game started that the previous one didn't have is you have some cards here that are going to say starting hand. So some characters are going to have maybe none, some will have 1, some might have 2, maybe 3, depending on what characters. So when you first start your deck, you pull this card out, then you shuffle your deck, and you draw them. You draw the rest of your cards to fill up your hand. This is just to represent abilities that the character would have that doesn't make sense for them to draw later in the game. It's something they would always, not saying they would just necessarily always have access to, but the way the ability works, if they draw it late in the game, it's not going to be as effective. For example, Wolverine has a healing factor. It says, as long as this card is spaced up in your storyline, if you have less than 3 cards in your hand at the end of your villain turn, you may draw a card. So if you drew this, you have 4 cards left in your deck, and you got KO'd for some reason. You draw all 4 cards. So you have no cards left in your deck, and this is it. So basically, saying you have 4 cards left, which would be means you have about 4 turns left until you lose. This isn't going to be super helpful because you're not going to have any cards to draw. Well, it's not going to be helpful at all, because if you didn't have any cards in your deck by that point, you can't draw any anyhow, so this is completely useless. So that's why they let you start with it. Like, yeah, granted, the first turn or 2, it might not do anything, as you might not take damage. But if you do, it'll help you out. So now, if I played this first, I would get, like Wolverine went first, he'd have this ability active, and he'd get to play 1 heroic icon. Then the next player that plays only gets access to the heroic symbol. Same thing here, we have Adamantium Claws. So when Wolverine plays it, he gets 2 attack, and then he also gets 1 wild. So the next player that plays only gets access to the wild. They don't get the 2 claws as well. What's also neat is because they have different Adamantium Claws. It gives them the 2 attacking an attack icon, or 2 attacking a move icon. So they can have the same name card, but they can do a little bit different. The pictures are also kind of neat. So all these pictures are going to be the same because they're all attacking type cards. And like this one shows him like a heroic. So whatever picture kind of is a quick indication of mainly what the card does. So for example, we have another double heroic, which is going to look like heroic. And then we have like more attack cards. And I don't need to spend a ton of time going through all these because lots of them don't have abilities. So every character should have at least 3 special abilities. They might be 3 completely different named ones, like he has Adamantium Claws and Healing Factor, or they could be 3 that are all the same, like all 3 are Adamantium Claws, just maybe with different symbols. Maybe they're all the same symbols. Some characters have more, some could potentially have less, but I think they're all usually have at least 3. So we have some movement for him. He can move and attack, and he can move in heroic. Then the final 2 cards we have are the wild. So every character will have 1 card that has 1 wild symbol and 1 that has 2 wild symbols. You can then use these as part of a challenge mode. So if you want to make the game a little bit harder for yourself, they have these challenge cards. So each one says, set up, each hero removes 1 of the 1 symbol, or they can remove the double one, or for super hard, they can remove all 3 of them. Not only are you starting with less cards that way, which will make the game harder, but you're also starting with less that do, less cards that let you do anything. So then you have to actually play a little bit better. Alright, so that's Wolverine. Alright, you know what we're going to do? I think we're going to jump in. We're going to look at Sabertooth next. So there's Sabertooth. We'll do a hero, then we'll do a villain. We'll kind of go back and forth. Giggle Saber. So red is usually the color of the villains. And then yellow, or blue is the color of the heroes. And that way the purple are the ones that are both. And that's just so when they're sitting on the board, you can tell them apart really quickly. Alright, so here we have Sabertooth's villain cards. So on the back, it's kind of the super villain thing, which I'm not going to go over all of them, because they are. But they have a special setup. So it says, assign the hunted token to a starting hero, they're the hunted hero. And that was this token right here. And that's just so you can keep track of that. Because these have a special effects that work on that. And what's neat is all these villains play, again, the core concept, they all play the same, like they do the same overall thing, but then each specific thing is different. Over on this side, you're going to have the health. So he's going to have either per 2-player, 3-player, or 4-player. So either 5, 7, or 10 health. So basically, the more players there, the harder it is to take care of. Which also makes sense because you're going to be potentially doing more damage. So his special rule says, when the hunted hero is KO'd before activating the BAM, so when a hero is KO'd, you always activate their BAM effect. Give the hunted token to the next player in order. When a hero without a hunted token is KO'd, draw another master plan card and add it face down to the story. So his goal is he's going to try and take out whoever has a hunted target, but if somebody else manages to get KO'd instead, then he gets to play another card immediately. So both of those are bad. His BAM effect says, so if he plays a card that has this on here, or someone gets KO'd, you do this, is deal 2 damage to 1 hero in Sabertooth's location. This must be the hunted hero if they're in that location. He has an overflow, so if 1 or more thug or civilian tokens can't be added to the location, deal damage to the hunted hero. And this is why the overflow has to do with every time they play their character cards. The villains play their cards. So, like, example, if we play this one, this is going to show where Sabertooth moves. He's going to move counterclockwise to any location with the next hero. Then he's going to perform his BAM effect. And then down here, it's going to show if he's in this spot, that spot gets nothing, but the next 2 locations each gain 2 thug tokens. And if they ever overrun in those areas where there's little squares on the locations, if those ever become overfilled, then they do their overflow ability. And each player has a slightly different overflow ability. That's why it's important while you're trying to keep making sure not only just to sit on one tile and be like, oh, I'm going to remove everything from this spot, and then move to the next, remove everything there. No, you kind of need to be moving around, taking care of every location. And then finally, he's building this plot, which explains how he wins. says if the hunted token is given back to the starting hero in a 2-player hero game, they only lose when it happens a second time. So this means we're playing a 4-player game. If that token gets passed around 4 times, you're going to lose. So even if not everyone's been KO'd enough times to run their deck out, if they get KO'd once and it passes around, so each player only gets 1 KO with Sabertooth. I mean, he's vicious like that. Sorry, figure out where to put these. Alright, so we're going to look at his cards. So he's going to have, these are his master plan cards, and they're all going to have a picture of him on the back, just to keep them separate. And they're going to tell you what direction they move and what different effects. So he has another one that says move clockwise. This one drops civilians. Another counterclockwise. Another clockwise. Some of them, so this is called Hunter Census, so it gets a name. It's one of his special ones. So he's going to move to the location with the hunted hero regardless. But he's going to not just, you don't want to just jump him there. He has to move like through locations because some effects might deal with that. It's kind of neat though. He's not dropping anything in his spot, just the spots around him. So he's got some that go, some that give heroes, some that give civilians, and he's got a bunch of them. And then he's got 2 final special ones. He's got 0 movement. He doesn't move anywhere because he's going to sit here and regenerate. So as long as this card's face up in the storyline, Sabertooth recovers 1 health at the end of his turn, and he gets a second one. So both of these guys out, he's going to gain 2 health every turn. So that's going to make him even harder to take out. Alright, then the next thing he's going to have is he's got one more here that I missed. But then they have threat cards. Each player, or each villain, is going to have 6 threat cards, 1 for each location that's in play. And they can all be different, half of them can be different, it depends on the character. So he's going to have 3 copies of Killing Spree, and you got to play 3 heroics to get rid of these. So that's how you get rid of all of those guys. And then this says, when he lands on that spot, so if he moves, he automatically stops. That's what the bullseye is going to mean. He'll automatically stop when he passes through this location. And that's why I was saying these ones where it says like he moves, or the hunted ones, when he moves to the one at the location. You don't just move him across the board where the hunted is. He has to go location to location. So if he happens to cross over this, he'll stop there first versus attacking the hero, or going to the hero. But it says discard all civilians from this location, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in both adjacent locations. So versus him jumping in and attacking this hunted one, if he lands on this, he's going to discard civilians, which could cause damage from overflow, plus make it harder for you to do the civilian mission. Plus he's going to deal 1 damage to heroes in both locations. So it could actually potentially be worse. You might just want to get rid of these so he doesn't hurt you that much. And he's also going to have 3 copies of No Place to Hide. So as if the hunted hero ends their turn in this location, they take 1 damage. So again, that could, you drop your hunted character there, so you're going to need to definitely try and take this out as quickly as possible. So that's Sabertooth. Alright, up next we have Storm, Aurora Monroe. She's going to get her classic white silver costume from the 90s. Little X's on there, the earrings, she's got her cape up. She's flying on like a storm cloud. Alright, so we'll drop her over there. And then she's going to get, there's her big picture. Alright, so she's going to have some movement, move and attack, some more attacks, heroics, move, heroics, so she has a decent amount of movement, which makes sense for kind of her. Heroic attack, 1 wild, double wild, and then her special abilities are going to be 2 copies of Atmokinesis, controlling the weather. So it lets you deal 2 damage in any location and move. So like Wolverine had Adamantium Claws that let him do 2 damage where he was. Hers are going to let her do 2 damage in any location, so she can spread her damage out, which is really nice. And then she's going to have 2 copies of Goddess of Weather, which says relocate any heroes to different locations. So this lets her freely move everybody. So having her on will really let you get everyone moved around a lot quicker and spread some of your damage out, which is really nice. Alright, then let's look at our next villain. We're going to have Kane Marco, the Juggernaut. Big, bulky. So the Juggernaut is going to, he has no special startup. He's got some starting tokens if you're playing the supervillain mode. So his stuff is going to be a little bit simpler, but that doesn't make him easy. He doesn't have all the extra rolls. So he has 8 health, 8 health, or 8 health, regardless of how many players there are. Makes him a little bit simpler in that way. And some player might think, well, how come he has same amount of health if there's 2 players versus 4 players? And I think the reasoning is because if there's 2 players versus like 3 or 4 players, you can still dodge them a lot easier with only 2 people on the board. Where you have 4, yeah, you're going to get hit more often, but you have more people that can also absorb the damage and stuff like that. So his special rule is, when a hero is KO'd, Juggernaut doesn't activate his BAM. Instead, he draws another master plan from the deck and adds it face down to the storyline. Just something you're going to see common. Lots of them have that. When they KO someone, they don't get to do the special effect. Instead, they draw more and they become a bigger threat. His BAM says deal 1 damage to each hero in any location Juggernaut left, entered, or moved through this turn. So that Juggernaut's charging is what he's doing. He'll charge through areas and he'll deal damage. In overflow, if 1 or more thug civilian token can't be added to a location, deal 1 damage to each hero in Juggernaut's location, draw another master plan card at face down to the story. So he's just all about, he wants to keep that momentum going, so that's kind of where this drawing more cards comes from. Because he's just going to keep trying to move and run through stuff. So let's look at his cards. So he's going to have, in this Marvel set, or X-Men set, plays a lot more with characters moving counterclockwise instead of just clockwise, which is really nice because then it's a little bit more unpredictable. So he's going to move 2 spaces counterclockwise, and bam, his special card is the Crimson Cosmo Armor. If Avatar of Cyrac threat cards have been cleared, put 1 of them back into play in the next counterclockwise location without a threat. So the Avatar, I'm going to look at that one right away. So you have the Avatar of Cyrac threat cards. So as long as 1 or more of your Avatar of Cyrac is in play, Juggernaut ignores 1 damage each turn. So his Cosmic Armor here lets him put those back into play if they've been defeated. And you get 1 that lets him go the other direction. He has Unstoppable Charge. Move to the counterclock location with the most heroes. So this is actually interesting because if there's only 1 hero in each spot, he'll just move to the next one. But if there's one that has like 2 heroes in it, he'll move through all the other locations to get to those 2. So therefore his BAM effect is going to hit the other ones he ran through. Unstoppable Charge. Deal 1 damage to each hero in Juggernaut's location. He's going to get another one of those where he just goes the other direction. And then he's just going to have a bunch of generics. So you can go 4-1 for the others. Some of these drop thugs, some drop civilians. And you know, the location of where these are don't matter. Just showing that that's how many are in there. So 3 or 3. 2 or 2. Or he's got another 4 and another 4. So yeah, you can definitely do some big damage there. And what's also interesting, yep, all of his have the BAM effect. And they don't always have BAM. I just think they use the BAM a lot more in this one. Ooh, we didn't look at the back of his card. There's our Juggernaut. Alright, his threats. We have 2 copies of the Armor of Cyrac, which we just saw. We have the 2 copies of Power of Sidorak. Says when taking damage, heroes in this location take 1 extra damage. And 2 copies of the Seal of Sidorak. The hero starts the turn at this location, treat any special effects on their cards as they were blank. So that's the thing, you gotta pick and choose what threats and which ones you want to get rid of more quickly versus another one. Alright, up next, well, speaking of Juggernaut, let's look at what his stepbrother can do. We have Professor Xavier in his golden wheelchair, hover chair. So there's Xavier. So he's actually got a really interesting deck here. So he's got, so I find odd, he has a lot of movement for a guy in a wheelchair. I mean, it's a hover chair, but still. Movement heroic, heroic attack, wild. And this is what's making his difference. So he has a lot more abilities. So he has Genius Intellect. This card you may trait heroics as they were wild. So if, like, just right now he's playing his, he can treat his 1 heroic as a wild, but somebody else played, like, a double heroic before him. I give him 2 more wild, so setting stuff up, planning it, works really well. Got another one that does the same thing, Genius Intelligence, but it works with fists. He has Leadership, so he can give 2 heroic tokens from the pool to another hero. You can also use those heroic tokens with your other card. So he's also going to get one that does Leadership with fists. Then he's got Telepathy. Choose another hero. They can swap any number of cards in their hand with cards in their storylines. That's super powerful. Especially later in the game when you gotta reuse stuff. And then Mind Alteration. Turn up to 2 thugs at your location into civilians. So definitely some interesting things. Alright, then let's look at, we have Magneto. So we went from that, we'll go to his arch rival. So Magneto is purple because he's a hero and a villain. He's the same model. Like his little nuts and bolts stuff all over his cape. Just the details on these are really cool. Alright, we're gonna set him back in there. So Magneto has a special thing that says replace civilian rescues with use the Cerebro mission. So normally your missions are defeat thugs, rescue civilians, and clear threats. And if you get the Guardians of the Galaxy box set, they have Plan B, which actually are harder versions of those. But then he also has use Cerebro. So on the back, they'll list what they are, just in case the front telling you didn't tell you. So he has use Cerebro, which replaces one of them. It replaces civilians. So in this one, to defeat it, you only have to play 6 tokens. But you have to play heroic and movement at the same time, 3 times. So you have to actually plan a little bit better to be able to do this. So it's kind of neat. And I suppose you could probably toss that in and use that with any other mode or any other character if you really wanted to. Just to change it up. So Magneto has 5 health, 7 health, or 10 health. His special rule. At the start of each villain's turn, add a civilian to the location opposite of Magneto. His BAM effect. Add 1 thug and deal 1 damage to each hero in Magneto's location. Each hero in this and adjacent locations must discard 1 action token if they have any. His overflow. If 1 or more tokens can't be added to the location, turn all civilians in that location and both locations into thugs. And since you don't have the rescue civilian, that's not a big deal there. You don't have to complete that part of it, so them changing there doesn't hurt you too bad. Villainous plot. If heroes lose at any moment, villains lose at any moment, there are no civilians in any locations. And this is why they don't have you rescuing civilians, because you'd be taking them out of there. But yeah, you need to like make sure they don't overflow, otherwise you're going to start losing them left and right. And there are some, what am I thinking of? There are some hero attacks that can do damage to the civilians as well. Like Hulk, I know, has one that just destroys everything in their spot. So him versus Magneto might not be a great idea. Alright, so there we got little chibi Magneto. Let's look at his cards. So he's gonna drop some more thuds in there. He goes bam. Here's that one where he moves one. Moves one. His is a little bit more straightforward deck. Moves two. Moves two. Moves three. Moves four. Move threes don't have BAMs. And then his abilities. He has 2 copies of one that moves in 0 spaces and one that moves in 2. Let's say Organic Iron Manipulation. Give each hero 1 Crisis token. Then each hero takes the number of damage equal to their Crisis tokens. Such little triangles were. The little exclamation points are Crisis tokens. And then his last 2 are Magneto's Helmet, which moves in either 0 or moves in 2. It says, until the next villain's turn, cancel all effects on hero cards, and Magneto and Magneto's henchmen ignore the first damage each turn. So yeah, when you play them, like, they don't use your special abilities, and they don't take damage. So that's going to definitely make them harder to beat. Let's look at his threats. He has 2 copies of Magnetic Force Field. So as long as Magneto is in this or adjacent locations, he can't be damaged. It's going to be really hard to defeat him. He has some henchmen who we haven't seen yet. So this will be Scarlet Witch, who she'll have 4 health, and she has a BAM. So if Magneto lands on this, so whenever a BAM effect happens, you also do the villain's BAM effect as well. So each hero in this location must take 1 random card from their hand and remove it from the game. You got Quicksilver, because he has his original Brotherhood, who also has 4 health. Deal 1 damage to the hero with the most cards in his hand. If multiple heroes are tied, choose hero. Mastermind. Heroes in this and adjacent locations reveal 1 random card in their hand for each attack. At the bottom of the revealed card, discard 1 civilian from that hero's location, which we definitely don't want to be doing. And the Blob has 5 health. Discard 1 civilian from this location, deal 1 damage, and give 1 crisis hero to a hero in this location. So yeah, getting rid of a civilian versus Magneto, not good. Also extra crisis token, which worked really well with his other ability, definitely bad too. And then heroes using move to leave this location must use double move instead. So yeah, definitely the henchmen can make for some really interesting things. Plus, it's the difference between having to win with heroics, win using the heroic icons to defeat threats, or having to do damage. So like the other ones were all so far lots of playing heroics to win. Those ones you have to actually just do damage. So if you have a lot of damage you have to do, it'll make a difference. So here we got Jean Grey, pre-Phoenix, in her classic 90s outfit. So let's see what Jean Grey can do. She's got to kind of be a little bit similar to Professor X in some respects. She got some heroic, move attack, double attack, move heroic, double heroic, and her 2 wild cards. And her special abilities are 2 copies of Major Telekinesis. Get a heroic and attack split as you like in your location and adjacent locations. So that's her kind of hit all around you. And then she's got 2 copies of Telepathy. Swap the previous hero in the card in the storyline with any other hero card in the storyline. So I'll let you basically, the player before you can play whatever they want, because you can just swap it for something else you need better. So if they play like 1 move, you can swap it for a 2 move, or you can swap it for a heroic or a wild. Whatever you need to do, which is definitely cool. Alright, so there is Jean Grey. Then we're going to look at our final bad guy. And then we'll get back into the rest of the heroes. So we have Mystique. I'm going to say, special, place Senator Kelly token in the hero's starting location. So that's going to be this presidential red and blue looking one. So Mystique is going to have 4 health, 6 health, or 9 health. Special rule, Senator Kelly. He's affected by anything that affects heroes. Heroes can take him with them when moving. A hero in this location can take any damage that will be dealt to him. When a hero is KO'd, Mystique doesn't activate her BAM. Instead, move Senator Kelly one location counterclockwise and draw another master plan at it face down into the story. So this one goes face down, so she doesn't get the abilities, but if the master plan deck runs out, she wins the game, so it gets her one step closer. Her BAM, deal 2 damage to one hero in Mystique's location. Overflow, if one or more token can't be added, move Senator Kelly one location counterclockwise, then draw another master plan at it face down. Villainous plot. The heroes lose if Senator Kelly takes any damage. So that's crazy. Like, he can't even take any damage or you lose. So let's jump in and look at what she can do. So there's Mystique's back of her cards. So she's going to have Master Assassination. Move Senator Kelly to this location, and then BAM. So she's going to do... So it says, he's affected by anything that affects heroes. So deal 2 damage to one hero in Mystique's location. And then she's going to deal damage. If someone's not there with him at the time, she'll do damage to that hero. But if there's nobody in that location with him, then he's just going to take the damage and die. So this could definitely take people out really quickly. So she's actually going to get 4 of those. And then she's going to have Metamorph. She has 2 copies of that. Let's move her 3. Add a civilian to each location with no civilian until the next villain's turn. Damage to Mystique is dealt to the next clockwise henchman instead if present. You can shapeshift and you think you're hitting her or you're hitting Blob instead of her or something like that. Except it's not Blob. So she has 5. She has a 4. She has a 3. She has a 2. And she has a 1. And then a 0 where she doesn't move. So those are all hers. Alright, then her threats are going to be hiding in plain sight, and she has 2 copies of those, which say as long as this threat is in play, damage dealt to Mystique is dealt to the next clockwise henchman instead. So then she's going to have a bunch of henchmen. So she's going to have the other Brotherhood or the Freedom Force, whichever way you want to look at it. So she has Avalanche, which she actually gains 2 per player, which is a new thing I don't think they've done before. So discard 1 civilian from this in each adjacent location. Deal 1 damage to each hero in each of those locations that had no civilians. We have Destiny, so Mystique will stop on here. Move Senator Kelly 1 location counterclockwise. Heroes can prevent this by drawing another master plan and placing it face down in the story. Pyro. Deal 1 damage to 1 hero in this location and adjacent locations. And then finally, Toad. If possible, move Toad to the next clockwise location with no threat. Then deal 1 damage to 1 hero in Toad's location. So they're going to deal some damage. Alright, we got some more heroes. We're going to round out the last couple of heroes here. So we have Cyclops in his classic costume. Alright, so there's Cyclops' back. Alright, so Cyclops is going to have some movement, some attack, double attack, move heroic, double heroic, double heroic, a wild, his double wild, and now we're going to get to his specials, which he'll have his Optic Blast, which he'll have 2 copies of. So it says attack in both adjacent locations, plus he can attack wherever he wants. Which also nice to use abilities. You can use them in any order, so you can attack this one first, then do the other ones. That should make a difference for that particular card, but some might. And he's also got leadership. So Professor X also has leadership, which let him give out 2 tokens. Cyclops only gives out 1, but he gives out a wild. So it's kind of a here and there. Professor X 2 tokens could technically be better than 1 wild, but 1 wild might be better just depending on if you need what you want, in case you need another move. And his other one does move and also hands out another wild token. So that is Cyclops. Our last core X-Men is the Beast. Big Blue Hank McCoy. So it's different about this than the Avengers set is. The Avengers, you got 8 heroes and 3 villains. Here you're getting 6 regular heroes plus 2 alternate heroes and 4 villains. So you're getting 1 more villain and you're still getting your 8 heroes. So it's actually kind of neat. Actually getting 1 extra character. So we got Beast. Let's look at what Beast can do. Move and attack, move and attack, move and attack, which makes sense for him to be so agile. Move and heroic, just heroic, double heroic, wild. His special abilities is this. Regeneration factor. You may draw up to 3 cards until you may draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. He's got another one that just gives him different symbols. And then he's got Genius Intellect, and he's got 2 copies of that, which lets you treat your stars as wilds. So some of these are repeating from character to character, but that's fine. Like, characters have the same abilities. So far, I've only shown Wolverine to have starting cards. But that's because he's the only one that has it. But now we're going to jump into Mystique. Mystique will have 2 starting cards. And there's her back. The only thing I don't like about this, and I just noticed this, is... So, this is Hero Mystique, this is Villain Mystique. There's a slight shade of color on the back that's different. But there's nothing else that makes it stand out quicker. So that'd be the only slight issue with them, but, I mean, unless you're for some reason playing Mystique versus Mystique, it shouldn't be an issue. Like, I keep my cards in 2 separate decks. So her starting cards are going to be Megamorph. So she's turning into Sabertooth. On the next villain turn, you may redirect any damage dealt to your henchman or any thug in your location. So if you take damage, you can automatically flip it to a henchman or any thug. And then she has another one instead of attack, she gets the heroic. So then her regular cards are move, attack, move attack, heroic attack, double attack. She has lots of attack. And her 2 wilds and her last 2 abilities are going to 2 copies of Spy Master, which say the next master plan card cannot add thugs or civilians to your location, or one of the 2 adjacent ones. You choose. So it's kind of nice. You can keep her from playing a bunch of stuff. The villain from playing a bunch of stuff. And then our final hero, our final character, is going to be Giggle Magneto, who also doesn't have any starting cards. It's kind of a neat idea, but the fact they only did 2 characters that had them is kind of odd. But I'm glad not every character has starting cards. Alright, so he has Prodigal Intelligence, which you can treat all symbols as wilds this turn. Or he has Genius Intelligence, which both Beast and Professor X have, except he does move into wilds. His regular cards are movement, double attack, move attack, just attack, a little bit of heroic, attacking, and double walks. He's all about attacking. He's only a little heroic. And then he finally has 2 copies of Magnokinesis, or Magnetokinesis. Does 3 attacks, split as you like, in your and adjacent locations, which is really powerful, but he also has no special thing he passes on. So when you play this card, you're going to get to do 3 attacks, but the next player is not going to get a bonus. So it'd be helpful for them to know what they're going to be able to do. Alright, so that was our last hero. The last thing we have to take a look at are these supervillain and superhero cards. If I can get them out of the box. What they need to do with these game trays is make these card boxes where the cards go slanted. Alright, so we're either supervillain or the superhero cards. This is if you're playing the special superhero or supervillain mode where one player gets to control the villain. So then what they would do is if they're playing like as Magneto, they get to draw 2 of his movement cards. Like for example, I have Mystique here, I guess. They get to draw 2 of these. They can decide which one they want to play each turn. But then they also get a hand of these, but they don't draw every single one of these. They're not drawing out of this deck every turn. You get to draw, I don't remember how many cards. I think you draw 3 to start with. So that way every time you play, you get a little bit different, but it gives you options to use. Plus, like every time you play, it's going to be a little bit different. So here we have Misdirection. When you play a Mastermind card, it should add thugs or villains, or thugs or civilians. Add these, splitting them as you wish in your adjacent locations. You can add them wherever you want. Gives you a little bit of option. Saw that coming. You play a Master Plan. Heroes can't use any action tokens till the next turn. Covert Operations. Play a Master Plan. Discard up to 2 Master Plan cards to the bottom of the deck to draw the same number. So you reshuffle. Now You See Me. You may play a Master Plan that has a BAM on it. You can apply your BAM effect as if you were in an adjacent location instead of your current one. Caught Alone. You may play a Master Plan that moves you to a location from a single hero. Deal 2 damage to the hero in your location. Flexible Plans. Play a Master Plan. Change your movement to a number of your choice from 0 to 6. That's actually pretty powerful. Personal Nemesis. When you play a Master Plan that moves you with one or more than one hero, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in your choice of your location. Terror in the Streets. If you move that has no tokens, any location that has no location at the end of a hero turn. Add any combination of 2 to each location with none of them. Nasty Surprise. All heroes are in locations with no threats. Play 1 cleared threat of your choice in a location of your choice with no threat. Sabotage. Play a Master Plan. Take all hero action tokens from heroes. Discard 1 of your choice, then redistribute those tokens as you wish between heroes. This should be really good if they're like trying to save up like attack icons or something, or wild. So they can just be like, oh, I can jump in now, like, I can move Wolverine over to attack Magneto, he can do like 5 damage in 1 turn. And here you can redistribute it, so now maybe he only has 2. Getting Stronger, Me Too. Any hero has 4 or more cards in their hand. Gain 2 health, you may go above your starting value. And the last one is More Crisis. You play a Master Plan, place 1 Crisis token in any location, or give 1 Crisis token to a hero of your choice. So now, with the 4 villains, this should work well with Magneto, because he has an effect that does it. With any other character, this wouldn't be useful at all, because there's nothing to trigger what the Crisis icon does. So that's kind of a neat one. And then we have our superhero cards. So I think each player gets one of these that they can use. So if you have 4 players, you get 4 of these to use. So it's kind of, again, you don't play through the entire deck, you don't keep drawing them, but it gives everyone a little extra boost if they need it. So crowd control, overflowing trigger in your location, cancel it, easily enough. Taking me with you, you're KO'd. Delay the next villain card by 1 turn. Strategic retreat. The villain ends their movement in your location. You may move to any other location. Get ready. The villain ends their movement in your location. You gain 1 wild token. Eye of the Hurricane. There are no tokens in your location. At the end of the villain turn, you get to draw a card. Shake it off. You're about to take damage during the villain turn. Ignore up to 2 of it. Thwart the plan. The villain ends their movement in your location. Look at the master plan cards in the villain's hand. You may force them to put one on the bottom of their deck and draw a new one. And to the rescue. Each hero is about to take damage during a villain turn. You may take the damage instead and gain 1 heroic token. So these are really fun. Only thing I would hope with those is I don't think there's any more anywhere else in the game other than in this set. I'd have to double check to see if any of the other expansions added it. But that'd be the only thing is I hope they make, like, here's a new mode you can play. I hope they have more content that adds more cards to it. But that's what we have for X-Men Villain United. I don't know if they plan on doing a release similar like they did last year with the Marvel United, just a regular version where Walmart had one where they swapped out the Wasp for Venom. So I don't know if they're planning on doing this again and swapping one of these characters out for somebody else. It would be really hard pressed to decide who you could swap out. And if I had to guess, I would say it would either be probably either be Beast or Professor X, maybe Storm. I could see Wolverine only for the fact is if you bought the expansions you get, but I don't think they'd get rid of Wolverine. He's too iconic. I haven't heard anything. You know, if there is something like that, you know, I'll probably end up buying that so I can show off that character ahead of time. Until then, we'll see what happens when the next sets come out. See you guys later. Bye.